Ah, there you are.
Right.
You're in.
Wait, could you hear me that whole time?
Oh no, I couldn't hear a thing.
Okay, perfect. Right.
Get that plugged back in.
Is it weird that I just brushed my teeth for this?
No, I mean I'd say it's hygienic. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
I'm
How
very
have you
much
been?
liking the jacket. That is a very, very nice jacket. You been at work?
I have not been at work,
No.
but as far as like the weirdest things that I could probably have been doing right now, I was at my mum's wedding this morning.
Oh right.
It was strange that it just so happens that the Shrew, the Flu
Yeah.
first picture book comes out today on the exact same.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. On the exact same day that my mum happens to be getting married.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a sneaky wedding.
Yeah.
So there was only 4 of us, but that explains the suit. I'd normally be pajama bottoms, maybe a shirt up top.
Well, now you've got no excuse to remember either anniversary for either your mum's wedding or the publishing of your first book. You know, tie it all together.
The funny thing is, not so. Originally, the wedding was scheduled to be on my mum's original divorce date, and then she rescheduled it. Happened to land on the publishing of Boom.
Yeah.
Right by the side of me. And yeah, what a weird coincidence.
How does it feel for it to be publication day, to have it all coming together, having printed copy of your book right next to you? How's that feeling?
It's been wild. I think
Yeah.
The strangest thing for me isn't anymore, I guess, like the fact that it exists. It's more when you see somebody, like I've had messages from people that I've either never talked to personally or in person, or I've never met before, or I've heard somebody that I know talk about them gifting it to a friend. And for me, that's probably the strangest thing, because it's outside of my ecosystem. I think
Yeah.
if it was just my immediate friends and family, I think it would feel amazing.
Yeah.
But there's something really special about hearing from people, hearing that people care when you've not met them before. That is quite a crazy feeling.
Yeah. What I love about this as well is because you started with Kickstarter, didn't you? That was how you started the whole process off. So obviously that starts in your immediate ecosystem. So what was the process when you originally started it?
I think so. It's mad how far this project dates back, because what a lot of people don't see is that, sure, the Kickstarter was almost like the real foundations, the legs of this project.
Yeah.
But the work started way before then. Like, so I wrote the book a couple years ago at uni, and I originally sent it to publishers. I googled, what do you do when you've written a book, and sent it around all of these publishers. And the one response I got was a rejection, saying that it's a celebrity saturated market.
Yeah.
The rejection was by no means a reflection of the work. It wasn't based on the content of my writing, but the fact that they didn't feel like I had a platform to market it.
Yeah.
And that was really the start of the journey, because it was from that point onwards, I feel like I was a little bit out to prove a point that it could be a book. And I think it lit a bit of a fire in my belly for the fact that, I was studying journalism. My whole degree was supposed to be about bringing writing to marketing, bringing the two together. And so from there, I guess the idea to start a crowdfunding campaign began. And then from there, I guess it all just spiraled into the next thing, and then ended up being where it is now.
So how many publishers did you send it off to? Was it a lot?
It was a fair few. Probably, I mean, I'd written a few stories. I still have a few stories that I've sent out. I think The Shrew with the Flu was probably the one I felt most proud of at the time. And so across the books I sent out, I must have sent like 30 odd submissions. And I think it's just the reality of the market. You're as a 20-year-old,
Yeah.
it is really hard to stand out. And I think even as somebody that would pride themselves on being incredibly random and like different for a 20-year-old, you still look like the next person, I guess, if you haven't dug into that, you know, that one little flair that captures somebody's attention, and half the time you don't even know what that's going to be. So I think while I might not have shown that at the time, I still felt confident in myself that it was there. So that really what drove me to actually get it to the point that it is now.
It's the horrible catch-22 that you need the experience to get the job, but you need the job to get the experience, especially in the digital world. Because it's, I mean, we obviously, we both work in marketing, we both work in digital marketing. So the saturation level is mental. Like, I mean, mine's all nutrition, and I find 5 new supplement companies a day. Your ability to stand out is, it's near impossible. So what do you see as a journalist looking at it? What do you see as being the defining point that can set you out in the market? Seeing as everything is so saturated, what is it that you see as the way to permeate through it and to get your head above the crowd if you're not already a celebrity?
I think with everything, I mean, as far as my experience with anything that I've cared about or cared enough about to really go for, the only difference between something that's worked and hasn't is the amount I've cared and the amount I've tried. I think the projects that are, or I suppose the people that seem to be consistently successful from what I've seen, have always been people that they are constantly trying and they care about the things that they're trying about. And I think if with those two things together, I don't see why other people wouldn't have a reason to believe in what you're doing. It's a little bit like when we met, what, like a couple years ago would it have been now?
Yeah, well,
when you were running Union Jab, and you think, well, actually, there you go, you're wearing the merch.
Still love it.
So yeah, that's it. I think when you look at the real cogs that were turning that machine, it's much to do with your effort, and I'm sure you felt that to some respect it was the effort put in that was driving the whole process, and the amount that you care is, I suppose, directly correlates to how much effort you can put in the long run, and whether that then causes you to pivot, or whether then you find something else that you care more about.
So obviously it's true with the flu. What I say, what what is a brief synopsis of the story, and why is it that you're so passionate about it? What is that passion behind it?
So The Shrew with the Flu is a children's picture book, which is all about a shrew's experience of like gobbling up a forest. And it's all about a shrew that learns to respect Mother Nature, I guess, after gobbling up a forest. And I think what means a lot to me in the book is that it's not, I mean, there are lessons within it. It definitely has themes which cover, you know, the issue of like sustainability and climate change and stuff like that. It feels very relevant to a lot of the conversations that are going on in society right now. But then at the same time, it's a light-hearted story about a shrew who ends up eating dirt and string when he's got a blocked nose. And I think if there's one thing I want to write, it's something that people can enjoy reading first and foremost, and people can take something from as an undertone, and as almost like a secondary part of the book. I think those two things together are why I care about the story and about why it means a lot to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose we're obviously in the middle of the virus pandemic, which kind of dates this video, but I suppose you couldn't have better timing for something with a disease and the effect of the environment on it. I mean, that's perfect timing for that book, I suppose. Have you noticed any benefit to yourself in that?
I mean, benefit seems like an odd word when you're talking
That's
about
a bad one. Yeah. Have all of those people dying from a deadly disease, how's that helped you?
Yeah, so I think there's been an uncanny link between everything discussed in the book and even the title of the book and everything going on in the world right now. I could never have predicted that, 2 years ago when I first sat in my uni bedroom and I wrote The Shrew with the Flu, that a global pandemic would happen just as I'm publishing the book, and the flu is all of a sudden the number one thing that people are talking about.
Yeah.
It is uncanny. It's so surprising, but I think an element of the book is that a lot of it is about the environment, and I think the environment is something that a lot of people are talking about right now. I care about it, but a lot of other people do as well. And I think it's somewhat inevitable that when you write something that you care about as a youth that is constantly looking at the world around them and caring about, and I guess looking at what other people are caring about, you're gonna write something or be working on something that touches on some element of society and some element of what other people care about right now. So I think the title is completely unexpected. I think some of the way it's the way it's shown in the book, the whole greedy aspect of it is, I guess, a little bit haphazard, but then the undertones of the whole book are just something I think matter right now to me and a lot of other people, and so it's almost like it's a joint anxiety, I'd say, that I care about and other people care about too.
Yeah, I mean, it's perfect getting it on Amazon as well. Perfect timing. Yeah. So how did you find setting up your distribution then? Because I know you've currently got it through Waterstones. Obviously it's up on Amazon. How did you find the whole process of trying to get the book out there, to get your sales streams out there? How was that?
So I think that is one of the most difficult tasks for anyone self-publishing a book. So had I gone straight to a printer, I think I would have really struggled with that. I think my process has been a little bit different in that from the very off, my goal was to have a book that looked and felt like any other book in Waterstones or Amazon in terms of the quality. Like, I wanted it to be that top shelf quality. And I wanted it to be able to sit alongside the other books and fight for itself in the way it was formed. And so with that in mind, rather than going straight to a printer and trying to, I guess, keep the costs as low as possible, try and get the absolute bare minimum book over the line, my process was finding a company that was a specialist, I suppose, in helping self-publishing authors publish books in as close to a traditional route as you can get. So I used a company called Silverwood Books, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't done the crowdfunding campaign. It's not cheap to do that, but as a result, they've then got ties with the likes of Gardeners, who's I'm still getting to grips with it, but Gardeners and Central Storage that basically enable me to distribute through people like Amazon and Waterstones in a better way. So I think using those kind of companies is really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even know that was an option. It's such a tough market because, like you say, you can't go through the publisher if you haven't got the platform, but you can't self-publish to a reasonable standard if you haven't got the money. So, I know from the fitness market, this is an argument I used to have with someone I worked with who he owned his own boxing label And we were constantly ranting about the only way to succeed is, do you have an endless pot of money to just throw at the wall until eventually something sticks? But obviously you thought it through, you found a better route.
You're trying to get a platform at the same time that you've got to build the platform, but you almost like need to have the platform to build the platform. And I think that's where you've just got to think anything you've got to really throw everything at it. I think it might not look as glossy or as perfect as you want it to be. I think like the process in itself probably could have been streamlined if I had used a traditional publisher or really pushed through with them. But I think having thrown my heart and soul into it, I think the one thing you will get out of it is progress, because it's somewhat inevitable when you're really pushing for something to happen. I think it will happen. And so I got there, but it wasn't. It was really difficult. And I think, for example, with like the crowdfunding campaign, there's definitely a misconception that you've like struck gold almost when you fund a crowdfunding campaign. Is probably the most difficult 40 days I've ever had in my life, in terms of I was spent every day watching the pot climb incremental amounts. And on a platform like Kickstarter, if you don't hit your goal, you don't get the money. And so I was in shop windows with flyers, like handing them to people in, I think it was a cheese shop that I ended up going, like, just stick it on the wall, and they were like, yeah, okay, good luck, go for it. And it was bizarre, but it was those things where, you know, you're just rolling your sleeves up and you're just trying for 40 days straight. It happened. And when you look back, it might seem like a blip that was about that amount of time, but it's really difficult. And I think, you know, kudos to anyone that goes and crowdfunds, because it's really difficult.
Yeah, I think what's hard as well is we're so used to seeing the social media virality of the Kickstarter that went crazy, and everybody thinks, oh, I'll do a Kickstarter and that'll happen for me. And it's like, no.
What a lot of people don't see is there was a Kickstarter before my Kickstarter, for the Shrew with the Flu. Before I successfully funded it, I flopped on another crowdfunding campaign because I hadn't put the time and energy into planning it. And it was really tough. I remember just going, you know what, actually, I like the book. I've got some rough sketches of it. Maybe this is enough. Maybe I'll be that viral story of the guy that blew up. But in reality, you put it up there, you sit back and you hope someone's going to chuck money your way. And sure, there will be some people in your close circles that are always going to support you, and they are the best people at championing something that you're doing. But when you just sit back and don't do anything, it won't get to where it could get. And unless somebody else picks it up and does the legwork for you, a lot of the time you'll find yourself having to try again and put more effort into the planning or the execution, or like the whole part of the process.
What were the main takeaways you took away from that first campaign that flopped? You know, what were the main lessons that you learned from that you took into the next one?
So after it flopped, I remember going and talking to everyone I could on the Kickstarter that had successful campaigns. Because I guess similarly to when I got rejected by those publishers, I felt like, oh, like I could have done that. Like, come on. I was looking at other campaigns, which I just thought, I felt like there was something in the story that could catch people's imagination. I just had framed it wrong. And what I'm finding out now still, or I suppose what I'm getting better at now, which I started to learn through that first Kickstarter, is that when you tell people to do something, you get a lot less far than when you show people you were already doing something and invite them with you. So there was, in the first campaign, I feel like it was pretty much, look, like, guys, I need this money, give me the money.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work, because that's not how people work. That's not how you engage someone's imagination. And then in the second campaign, and I tweaked the second campaign throughout those 40 days to try and get the messaging right and the tone of it just a little bit better, like here and there, as the days went on. And it was more about me saying, look, like, I love this story, I love what this stands for. If you do too, then it would be great to have you on the journey with me. And I meant it. I think, and I still mean it now when I thank people for it. I think what I want to get out of the book is to see other people enjoying it. And so actually my own headspace was wrong when I said, look, like, I need the money from you, give it to me. It's like, well, it's more shared than that. It's more of a collaboration. The people that are supporting the book are part of it too. There are names in the back of the book of people that supported it through the Kickstarter, and they wouldn't be there if I didn't feel like that had a significant impact on my journey through to publication.
Yeah. See, what I do notice on the social, I was scrolling through your account, getting caught up on as much as possible, but you follow the one, in my opinion, the golden rule is every time someone comments on one of your photos, on one of your posts, you're there saying, thank you for commenting, thank you for taking part. You're showing gratitude. And it's clear that you care about the project that you're doing. You know, you're walking the walk, you know, you're talking the talk, you're walking the walk, you know, you're following exactly what you're saying, which is fantastic. What I really want to know is, how did you get your illustrator on board? Because the illustration is beautiful. Like, I would have that as a poster. I need decorations behind me, actually. I would have that as a poster. It is gorgeous artwork. How did you set that up?
Like, so it's funny you say a poster. My favorite page in the book is this one where it says you have the flu. Hold on, can you see that there?
Yeah.
And I was like,
it's incredible.
Maybe it's bad timing, but I was like, oh, the way Jen, the illustrator, did that page, it just made me think, like, I want that on the wall. Like, and I completely agree, she did an incredible job. And the process, I guess, similarly to what I was saying before about the whole inviting someone on a journey with you, I found that equally as important when I'm talking to somebody that I want to collaborate with on a project. I remember, like, I messaged so many people that were best-selling illustrators. Like, I'd like to invite you on this journey with me. And I think my criticism now of what I was doing then is like, Will, maybe you're aiming a little bit too high, I guess. Well, no, I wasn't aiming too high, but I just had no idea of the kind of people I was speaking to. And I think I realized it wasn't important whether they were best-selling or not. It was more important that I had a reason other than the fact that they were best-selling to be reaching out to them. And so with Jen, I remember I had a phone call with somebody from the Shrew Book Festival. I think it was the person that runs that, and I can't remember her name, but she was really helpful, and she said, go and take a look at the Bright Agency's website. They've got some really great illustrators on board. And so I went and had a look, and I almost made a promise to myself that I wouldn't message somebody unless I felt like they could bring the vision to life in a way that I wanted it to. Because I think it's so easy to just message anyone and just say, I need an illustrator. And I looked through like tens and tens of pages, probably hundreds of pages. And then when I found Jen's work, I remember just seeing the way how vivid and colourful her drawings were. And I remember, I think she's drawn a picture of a monkey with long, like, fluffy hair, and thinking, that's like, if she can draw fur like that, I want Shrew's fur to look like that. And from there, it was a process of reaching out to her agent, saying to her agent why I felt like Jen in particular would suit the project. And I guess saying some stuff like that, look, I've seen this monkey that you've drawn. It fits with the Shrew. Like, if you can draw this like that, then you're perfect for this project. And all of a sudden, what you're sending is something that is tailored to the person you're talking to, and is about what you both bring to the table, not just what you're bringing to the table. And again, I think that's inviting someone on a journey that they want to be invested in as well, and it makes for a better experience. And Jen and me have been, I guess I've never met Jen in real life. We've only ever talked through emails and Instagram, and yet I feel like she's my best friend in the publishing industry right now. So it's been a crazy process, but I think just following your gut on things like that, and leading with your heart, I suppose, in the way that you present yourself and the project that you're working on, has done massive things for the Shrew with the Flu and everything that I've worked on since.
Yeah, because I mean that specific point you said there, I like the way you draw the fur on this monkey in this book on this page. I mean, you know, as we both work in the same industry, when you reach out to anybody, what's worse than a generic blank email saying, I am top #1 SEO, and you just read it and you go, right, okay, that's great. You don't even bother replying.
To influencers before and the experience.
Yeah, and it's that, I don't know. I think at least in today's digital market, it's nice to see there's a transition back to personality. I think, you know, everybody shifted thinking, oh, I can just be an influencer. I'll do everything on message and you'll come to me because I've got followers. But it's like, well, now everybody's got followers. You know, it's like, now you need a reason. I'm like, yeah, you've got followers, but do you talk to them? You know, are they actually interested in what you have to say, or are they just liking a picture of your bottom? You know, so now it's coming back to this personality driven side where when you talk to people, you're like, no, I want to speak to you, the person, you know, I want to speak to you, and this is why I want to speak to you. But no, I 100% agree what you're saying there about having that, well, it's basically effort level, isn't it? Due diligence. It's prepping your CV relevant to the application. Yeah, absolutely.
Hello, this is Charlie. Sorry for interrupting my own podcast, but I do need to take a little moment to say thank you to the sponsor of the podcast, Human Food. Fully organic, whole food, all your vitamin B12. It's got calcium, it's got vitamin D, and also it's got a good amount of protein in these awesome nutrition bars. They've agreed to give all of the listeners to the podcast a discount. So if you want half price off your first month subscription, there's links in all the descriptions, whatever you're listening to this on. So if it's on YouTube, all the podcast platforms, whatever it is, make sure to give Human Food a go. And if you don't want to commit to a subscription, you can also get 50% off a taster box. Just use the discount code CharlieSub or CharlieTaste. I think we need to work on the names of those discount codes, but they work. So thank you again to Human Food for your support. Thank you for everyone for listening, and let's just listen to the rest of what Will has to say.
Yeah, I did have another question. Self-help books.
Yeah.
It's very off topic, so I'm going to jump to it now. How big are you on self-help books? You know, The Secret, Power of Now, Self-Actualization. Are you into all of that?
I would say with you, when somebody says self-help books, there's definitely an image in your mind of like somebody that's having a midlife crisis. So if you're talking about self-help books that are more about, I don't know what. Yeah, if you explain to me more about what you think of as a self-help book, then I guess. Yeah.
Okay. So for me, I'd say, so the number one for me is, it's downstairs. I've got about 5 on my armchair, my old man armchair. For me, so it'll be, I've got my bookshelf here, 4-Hour Work Week, Think and Grow Rich, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Power of Now, Richard Branson, every autobiography by him, Tycoon, Peter Jones. These basic books that are, this is who I am, this is what I've done, and this is how I've done it. But I do agree there is a blurred line. I think you can tell where someone sits on that line between learning about a subject and midlife crisis, and I think the line is The Secret. I think that is, you know, Rob to Burn. I think that is the line that toes the difference. You know, do you find yourself sitting on either side of those?
I think I love listening to other people's insights from their experience. I think there's nothing better than hearing someone that's been through their own crazy journey and trying to let their experiences help you form your own approach to life, I suppose. That almost feels the defining feature of a self-help book. It's like life guidance, isn't it? It's like having a life coach in the form of a book. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I find they impact me in like a really similar way. And I think it's just important in general to make yourself aware of as many experiences as you can, and whether that's your own experiences or somebody else's, it really doesn't matter. I think ignorance isn't just, it's not something that you have to spend your whole time going out and bashing through a hedge to try and like live your life, and then all of your own personal experiences. I think ignorance is shutting yourself off from listening to other people, and the minute you start listening to somebody else's life experiences, you gain so much from it. The whole journey of like crowdfunding or just publishing and trying to create something, it would be, the book wouldn't be what it is now if I hadn't had 30, 40, 50 sit-down conversations with people that know more than me, where they give me advice on how I should do what I'm doing. And whether I need to take that advice or not is up to me. But just the process of sitting down and listening to another perspective is so important in forming your own ideas. I don't know whether you'd agree with that.
Well, one of my favorite quotes is Andrew Carnegie. That one of the first ever multimillionaires, the richest man there was, had the biggest trade deal ever with Charles Schwab, and on his gravestone he has, "Here lies a man who knew how to surround himself with people who knew more than him."
Brilliant.
And I love it, and same as Henry Ford. He was once taken to court. He took a magazine to court for libel because this magazine called him ignorant. And
you're such a fond of facts, Charlie. This is what I love. You literally
there's nothing else in there. It's all this pointless rubbish. But when Ford was in this, blame it on the autism. When Ford was on the stand, what they did is they hammered him with general knowledge questions, and he didn't know the answer to any of them. And he got so fed up with the interrogator, he just completely interrupted him and said, "Tell me one thing. Why would I fill my head with all of this useless knowledge when I've got a set of buttons on my desk and I can press any one of those buttons and have an expert on the subject come into my room? Why should I fill my brain with it?" And with that, he won the case. He had won the jury, and he won that case. He proved he was not an ignorant man because he knew how to surround himself with people smarter than himself. That came from a self-help book, by the way, both of those.
but those are the things that you want to read, really, aren't they? It's those little nuggets of wisdom that carrying them forward is so important in just being a better person, or at least I believe in that. I feel like that's definitely something that I believe in.
Well, you mentioned the word ignorance as well, and I wanted to ask, do you think there's a certain value to ignorance? So when you said about how you were emailing all of these, big name illustrators without really understanding who you were emailing, do you think there's a value in that?
Yeah, I think whether the right word is ignorance, I don't know, but I think what I've found time and time again is that sometimes listening to people's ideas of what works for them isn't going to work for you. And so being a carbon cutout of a carbon copy, that's the one, that's the phrase, of somebody else might not get you to the place you want to go. And I think sometimes just accepting that you don't know what you're trying to do, but you know where you want to go and you know who you want to be, like that's just as important. And it's more about just saying, look, this is the thing that I want. I'm gonna care about it, and I'm gonna try as hard as I can to get that thing. And actually, not knowing is sometimes the best skill you can have, because you go, actually, in these places that I'm looking, other people aren't. And there are so many people. I remember going to my first conference for writers and walking into a room of maybe 30 50-year-old women.
Yeah.
And it was a networking event, and just looking around and thinking, everybody looks the same in here. And it was terrifying for me because I'd never networked with a group of 50-year-old women before.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what it taught me is that my biggest advantage in being a writer, or anyone I want to be, is being young, trying hard, and not trying to be somebody else, accepting that I don't know everything, and just I talk about winging it quite a lot to people, and just sort of just winging it, just giving it a go. And that doesn't mean you haven't tried to inform yourself, but it means there's an element of just giving it a go regardless of whether you're qualified to or not, because you may well try.
Yeah, sometimes it's just about jumping and then building your wings on the way down, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a great analogy, and I completely agree.
Yeah, because I mean, as soon as you say winging it, I'm just thinking Branson all the way. But it's like you say, you know, a lot of the time when you speak to people who are older and have got more experience, they've often also been more trampled. And they've found lots of ways that don't work, and they're very quick to fill your head with all of these things that don't work because they've done it and it didn't work. But I'm like, yeah, but it didn't work for you. But it doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means it didn't work for you. I think there's a certain level where chatting to, I'm same as you. You know, go talk to as many 50-year-olds as you can who have been there and done it. But there's a certain level where after time you start to hear the same things of, yeah, well, maybe that won't work. Maybe this won't work. Maybe time does trample you. And there is a benefit to just going, screw it, let's do it. Just go for it. We'll just see what happens. So
definitely.
What are your future ambitions then? So obviously you've got a few more stories written out. Are you planning to produce a series, or are you just going whole hog on this one? What are your plans?
I think it's so early days with this book. Like I almost don't want to set anything out in stone yet. Yeah. I'm working on a book at the moment. Whether that's the next book that comes out, I don't know. I would love to see Shrew in more stories. I think I've fallen in love with Shrew, that I will continue to write stories with him in, and I think it would be great to see more of Shrew. I think I want to write more children's books. That's definitely one of the next things I want to do. And as you said, like, we're both in marketing, and I'm 22, and the next 5 years I think is just going to be probably a case of what we were talking about then, of winging it, just having a go at everything that comes my way. And in work, I want to throw myself into that. Outside work, I want to throw myself into writing, and whether I still have time to exercise in the same way, I still care about that. There's so many things I care about. I think it's always been a case of letting things fall into place, doing my best to just go with what I care about, and things tend to fall in place quite naturally. So I've got a full-time job now. That's brilliant. I love the business I'm working with. I'm selling books outside of my job, and I'm promoting the Shrew with the Flu. I love doing that. If I can get the balance right, brilliant. If I can't get the balance right, then something will change. But it has just got to be a case of doing the things I care about to the max, and changing things when I need to, and trying not to overthink everything, because I think everyone's in danger of doing that.
Yeah, it's paralysis by analysis, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know, we'll both have definitely been in that boat of, you know, you watch Limitless every day, and you imagine what it'd be like to take your NZT 45. You've got to drink 6 cups of coffee. You've got to stay on your laptop all the time. If you're not productive, you're not working. You've got to keep work. Burnout. It's whole generations made up of burnouts at this point. But it's like you say, it's about finding that work-life balance. When you mention exercise, are you still boxing?
I'm not boxing. Right. Well, I say I'm not boxing. I was doing jiu-jitsu. Like, before the pandemic. Yeah. And I really want to learn more about jiu-jitsu. Yeah. It's just it seemed like a great sport. I think.
Oh, it's brilliant.
I love boxing. I've got a boxing bag. I go on my boxing bag like probably every week. Like I love boxing. But yeah, I think I mean, it feels like almost a weird time to talk about sports like boxing and jiu-jitsu with everything else that's going on right now. It's difficult. And I was saying to somebody earlier today, actually, like, I really have my fingers crossed that the people that are running those gyms and those coaches can get back on their feet as quickly as possible. No, it's really tough. Like for me, I've not even thought about it recently. And that is just because it's, as we talked about, is like, it's a bit of a crazy world. So hopefully back to normal a little bit quicker.
Yeah, we're getting absolutely hammered in the northeast because obviously we've had extra lockdowns and all the restrictions imposed. So I've got obviously a couple of friends, just for context for anybody who's made the mistake of listening to this somehow. But I was briefly your boxing coach at Newcastle Uni. We've sparred together, we've boxed together. But obviously you're part of the northeast scene, but the northeast been hammered with it. But it's like you say about finding that balance to get exercise in there. How important do you find exercise as part of your ecosystem of productivity? Because it was just interesting. I just found it interesting that you jumped to exercise straight after saying full-time job, the book, promotion, and then exercise. I was just wondering how important is that as part of your, your physical fitness, as part of your ecosystem?
Yeah, it's funny that you pick up on that, actually, because definitely I almost didn't realize in my own head that I prioritize things like that, but definitely I find exercise really important for my own headspace. I think being able to take the time, I mean, that's almost like my downtime, I'd say. When you go to the gym and you might have music on, but you're not surrounded by things that are trying to grab your attention. You're in control. You can take as much time as you want. Or I like to do like high intensity training, and doing stuff like that is it just snaps you out of everything else you're thinking about. You've got to be there in the moment, and it's almost like just a bit of a reset button in your head at the beginning or end or whenever part of the day, to just go like, right, and like, let's start again, and from now we're feeling good. So I find exercise is brilliant at helping my own headspace, and I know other people find other things good for their headspace, but yeah, I'd say it's one of my priorities, one of the things that I'm always trying to juggle, at least for the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's what's great about fitness as well. It's the more you give, the more you get, and then the more you have to give to everything else as a result.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Well, I've taken up enough of your time. We'll round it off there. So what I'll do, best place to buy the book, where's the best place for people to get it?
I'd say Amazon, at least for now.
Yeah.
Type in the Shrew with the Flu, Google the Shrew with the Flu, or hit it up on Amazon. You'll be able to find it.
Fantastic.
Social media at Will HD Official.
Perfect.
And yeah, you'll find me there.
Yeah, you beat me too. I was about to ask you about your social media. I need to chat to you now anyway, because I want a signed copy. I need to find out how I'm going to get hold of a signed copy.